It's 6 o'clock on Monday, May 22nd, 2017. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for the English edition of Our News, where we bring you today's top stories, translated into English every weeknight. Parliament is expected to gather in a special plenary session to approve the 6 provisional ministers agreed by the Prime Minister and the Democratic Party chairman. Following the agreement reached between the parties, the provisional ministers and vice minister were proposed by the opposition and received the consensus of the Prime Minister. Today's session has the implementation of the agreement reached between the Socialist Party and Democratic Party on its agenda. Parliament members will approve the dismissal of the 6 current ministers and the appointment of the provisional ones. It will also appoint the new chairman of the Central Election Commission, proposed by the Democratic Party, as well as a member of the Central Election Commission. Parliament will also approve a package of laws in function of the electoral reform. Parliament will approve some changes in the criminal code, toughening the articles for electoral code, changing the law on political parties, and will also change the articles related to the funding of political parties and campaign, and approve the opposition's members for vetting commissions. Just a few hours before the special plenary session, which will be held after the political agreement reached between the parties, the DP chairman gathered the Democratic Party parliamentary group and the allies, whom he familiarized with the changes of the 3 laws that are related to the electoral process. The meeting lasted only a few minutes. Some more news sources learned that some changes to the criminal code are expected to be approved in today's special plenary session. Articles related to the electoral crime are expected to be tightened. Criminal code will be for 1 year in prison for those who give their identity card to be used by another person, and 5 years in prison for the selling of a vote or taking a picture of the vote. The law on political parties is also expected to change, especially the articles related to the funding of political parties and the electoral campaign. The Democratic Party has selected the candidates for members of vetting commissions who will be approved in today's special plenary session. The President announced for the dismissal of some ministers of the majority and the appointment of the provisional ministers who will also be approved in Parliament. The proposal for the new chairman of the Central Election Commission is also supposed to be approved in Parliament. The agreement reached between the main political parties paves the way to complete implementation of the vetting process of judges and prosecutors. The process has been blocked since April and will be unblocked after the members of the opposition for vetting commissions will be approved in today's special plenary session. The People's Advocate and the International Monitoring Operation have concluded the verification of the criteria of the candidates. From the People's Advocate verifications, 84 candidates meet with the legal criteria to be members of vetting bodies, while 17 of these members have received a negative recommendation from the International Monitoring Operation. 109 other candidates did not meet the formal criteria, and 70 of them received a negative assessment from the International Monitoring Operation. Parliament should now review the 3 lists of candidates: the list with clean candidates of 67 members, the list with candidates who do not meet the formal criteria of 39 candidates, and the list of candidates who have received a negative recommendation from the International Monitoring Operation of 87 candidates. Parliament will set up an ad hoc commission with 6 members, 3 from the majority and 3 from the opposition, which will verify the 3 lists and will have 10 days to draft a list of candidates who will be voted on in Parliament. This list of candidates will be for 3 vetting bodies: the Appellate College, the Independent Commission of Qualification, and the Public Commissioners. The list will then be sent to the other 2 ad hoc commissions, one with 12 members that will select the members of the Independent Commissions of Qualifications, and to the other with 6 members that will select the members of the Appellate College. Both commissions have 30 days to draft the lists that will be sent to Parliament for approval, and Parliament should approve the lists within 10 days, with 3 out of 5 of the votes. The entire procedure for establishment of the vetting bodies will at most last 50 days. Shortly before the special plenary session, the President of the Republic, Bujar Nishani, has signed the decrees for the dismissal of some ministers and the appointment of the provisional ministers, as agreed between the Prime Minister and the Democratic Party chairman. The President announced the dismissal of the Vice Prime Minister, Nico Peleshi, and the appointment of Ledina Mandiai as new Vice Prime Minister, the dismissal of Minister of Interior, Fatmir Jafai, and the appointment of Dritan Demirai as Minister of Interior, the dismissal of Minister of Health, Ogerta Manastirliu, and the appointment of Arben Bechiri as new Minister of Health, the dismissal of Minister of Social Welfare and Youth Olta Jachka, and the appointment of Julieta Kurtusha as Minister of Social Welfare and Youth, the dismissal of Minister of Finance Arben Ahmetai, and the appointment of Helga Volkai as the new Minister of Finance, the dismissal of Minister of Education Lindita Nicola, and the appointment of Mirela Carabina as new Minister of Education, dismissal of Minister of Justice Petri Vasili, and the appointment of Gazment Bharati as new Minister of Justice. Meanwhile, the provisional ministers proposed by the opposition will be monitored by vice ministers appointed by the government. Today, in compliance with the agreement reached by the Prime Minister and the DP chairman, the government approved the appointment of 4 vice ministers in the institutions left to the Democratic Party. In today's meeting, the government decided to appoint a new Vice Minister of Finance, a Vice Minister of Justice, a Vice Minister of Interior, and a Vice Minister of Health. Parliamentary Laws Commission started the implementation of the political agreement reached between the Socialist Party and the Democratic Party. The Laws Commission has declared the vacancies of the Chairman of the Central Election Commission and of the People's Advocate. The agreement was reached between the Prime Minister and the DP chairman, but the Socialist Movement for Integration says that the agreement was reached also thanks to its merit. After the meeting, the Laws Commission, the MP of the Socialist Movement for Integration, Luan Rama, said that the agreement was reached because of the pressure of the SMI and of international partners, saying, "We have insisted on the need for dialogue, on the participation of the opposition in elections. We also expressed our willingness to offer all our mandates in service of a solution. Mehta said we are willing to support a government of trust if the opposition is content. We remain correct in our support for the implementation of the agreement." Mr. Luan Rama continued, saying that now there is no longer a government and an opposition, but a government of trust, which the SMI has asked for since the beginning and has been created. We reiterate the continuous support for implementation of the agreement, which was reached thanks to the SMI and international's pressure. Elections without the opposition would have been a step back and would have been absurd. We feel good that the opposition has trust in the government with Edi Rama as Prime Minister. The SMI will maximally praise the citizens' trust to emerge as the first political force in elections. Earlier today, the Laws Commission held a special session declaring that the vacancies of the chairman of the Central Election Commission, after the resignation of its chairman, and also announced the vacancy of the People's Advocate, after the mandate of the current one has finished. The Parliamentary Laws Commission is currently in a meeting, and it is expected to propose to Parliament the new chairman of the Central Election Commission and the Advocate of the People. The Party of Popular Alliance also withdrew from its request to Electoral College review the candidates' list for parliamentary elections. Considering the new conditions of the political agreement between the Socialist Party and Democratic Party, the representative of this party said that they will review the consequences in order to file a new lawsuit regarding the deadline for the registration of candidates in the Central Election Commission. The Popular Alliance Party requested the deregistration of the candidates' list, arguing that the parties registered their candidates out of the legal deadline set by the Central Election Commission. The Agrarian Party has also filed an appeal to the Electoral College, asking it to declare the candidates' list illegal, but it withdrew from its request just after the parties reached the political agreement. The first representatives of the POP did not accept to withdraw from their request, but they did so after the members of the Electoral College told them that the lawsuit was not valid at a time when the election date was postponed by June 25th. The representative of the CEC was of the same opinion, declaring that the lawsuit, under these conditions, has its shortcomings. That's all for our English edition this evening. Please join us again, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. for your local news in English. My name is Cosmo K, and on behalf of Aura News, thank you and good night.